After they leave you, it turns out that the narcissist still keeps thinking about you because of this. Have you ever wondered if a narcissist really forgets you after they leave? Or worse, have you caught yourself wondering if they miss you, even just a little? You might think that once they're gone, they've moved on, replaced you like nothing ever happened. But the truth is far more complex than most people realize. It turns out that many narcissists do keep thinking about you even years after they walked away. Not because they loved you in any healthy way, not because they truly cared, but because your presence left an imprint on their fragile ego, and when you disappeared from their life, something inside them shifted and never quite settled again. So what is it about you that keeps them thinking long after the relationship ended? And why can't they stop replaying memories of you in their minds? Today we're going to uncover the psychological reasons behind this strange phenomenon. We'll explore the hidden motivations that make a narcissist obsess over someone they supposedly left behind. And we'll show you why, despite what they may claim, they haven't forgotten you and probably never will. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I still pop into their mind? This video will give you the clarity you've been searching for. Because while time may pass, for a narcissist, some things simply refuse to fade. And one of those things is you. Let's begin by addressing a common misconception. Many people believe that narcissists are emotionally detached, incapable of meaningful reflection or longing. While it's true that narcissists struggle with empathy and emotional depth, that doesn't mean they don't think about the people who once played a role in their lives. In fact, narcissists often obsess over certain individuals, especially those who challenged them, resisted their control, or simply provided a unique kind of emotional fuel. Here are the key psychological reasons why a narcissist continues to think about you long after leaving your life. Represented control. They no longer have. Narcissists thrive on dominance. They need to feel like they're in charge of conversations, relationships, and outcomes. When you were in their life, they likely tried to manipulate, confuse, or undermine you in subtle or overt ways. That was their way of maintaining control. But the moment you left, especially if you did so confidently and without looking back, you stripped them of that power. And that's something they never fully recover from. They remember how you escaped their grip, how you stopped reacting the way they wanted, how you refused to play the game anymore. And that memory gnaws at them, because in their world, being out of control is unacceptable. And you remind them of that failure. 2. You saw through their mask. One of the biggest fears of a narcissist is exposure. Beneath the charming smile, the grand gestures, and the confidence lies a deeply insecure person, afraid of being seen as flawed, ordinary, or unworthy. You saw through the mask. At some point, you glimpsed the real person behind the facade, the manipulator, the emotional void, the fear of being unmasked, and that knowledge terrifies them. Even now, years later, they worry that you know too much, that you could reveal their secrets, that you hold the truth about who they really are. That's why they can't forget you, because you represent a threat not just to their reputation, but to their entire identity. 3. You are a source of narcissistic supply. They can't replace. At the heart of every narcissistic relationship is the concept of narcissistic supply. The attention, admiration, validation, and emotional energy they extract from others to prop up their unstable sense of self. You were once a source of that supply, whether through praise, arguments, or simply your emotional investment. You gave them what they needed to feel powerful and important. When you left, you took that fuel with you, and even though they may have found replacements, nothing quite matches the familiarity and comfort of what they had with you. So they keep thinking about you not because they loved you, but because they miss the way you made them feel, the way you fed their ego, the way you kept them emotionally stimulated. And until they find someone who can replicate that dynamic perfectly, you remain in their thoughts. 4. They remember the moments you stood up to them. Most people in a narcissist's life comply with their demands, tolerate their behavior, and accept their version of reality. But you were different. At some point, you challenged them. You set boundaries. You stood up for yourself. And that doesn't just make you memorable, it makes you unforgettable. Because to a narcissist, defiance is rare. And when someone dares to resist them, it leaves a lasting impression. It forces them to confront their own limitations, which is something they desperately avoid. They replay those moments in their minds not out of admiration but frustration. They wonder how you managed to walk away, why you didn't break down like others before you, what made you different. And no matter how many new people they meet, they can't recreate that same intensity. So you stay with them as a reminder of the one person who got away. 5. They miss the power dynamic. You created, even in the most toxic relationships, there's a strange kind of balance, a push and pull, a dance between two people, one leading, the other following. And narcissists become addicted to that dynamic. You were part of that dance. You knew the steps. You responded the way they expected, until you didn't. Until you changed the rhythm. Until you broke free. Now they're stuck trying to find someone else who fits into the same pattern. Someone who reacts the way you used to. Someone who fuels their emotions the way you did. But it's not the same. And deep down they know it. That's why they can't forget you. Because you created a power dynamic they haven't been able to replicate, and that frustrates them more than they'll ever admit. 6. They fear that you've moved on without them. Perhaps the most painful thing for a narcissist is realizing that someone has moved on, especially if that person was once important to them. They want to believe that you're still stuck in the past, that you're still hurting, that you're still longing for them, because that would mean they still have power over you. But if you've truly healed, if you've built a life that no longer revolves around them, it shakes their entire worldview, because it proves that they weren't as irreplaceable as they believed, that you didn't need them to be happy, that you found peace without them. And that's something they can't easily accept. So they think about you, not because they want you back, but because they want to prove that you still need them, that you're still affected by them, that you haven't completely moved on. And until they get that confirmation, they won't stop thinking about you. 7. Social media keeps you fresh in their minds. Let's not ignore the role of modern technology in keeping old wounds open. Even if you've cut contact, chances are the narcissist has found ways to keep tabs on you. Maybe they follow you under a fake account. Maybe they ask mutual friends about you. Or maybe they just check your profile occasionally, scrolling through your life from a distance. Every post, every photo, every update triggers something in them. Envy, confusion, anger, regret. And because they're incapable of letting go, these digital breadcrumbs keep you fresh in their minds even years after you disappeared from their life. It becomes a cycle. They check your page. They feel triggered. They imagine scenarios where they reinsert themselves into your life. They obsess over what you're doing. It's like emotional junk food, bad for them, but impossible to resist. 8. You were part of their story, and they can't rewrite it completely. Narcissists have a deeply ingrained habit of rewriting history, constantly reshaping the past to fit whatever version makes them look best. They craft internal narratives that cast them in the most favorable light possible, whether as misunderstood victims, heroic figures, or brilliant minds who are simply too advanced for the people around them. It's not just storytelling, it's survival for their fragile ego, because if they allowed themselves to see the truth, to acknowledge their flaws and failures, it would threaten the carefully constructed image they depend on to feel valuable. But no matter how much they try to twist reality, no matter how many times they replay events in their mind and edit out the parts that make them uncomfortable, there are still pieces of the story they can't fully erase. And you were one of those pieces. You were part of their life. You witnessed things others didn't. You stood up to them when most wouldn't. You challenged their control. You exposed moments of weakness they tried so hard to hide. And perhaps most importantly, you made a choice, a conscious, powerful decision to walk away, to put yourself first, even when doing so went against everything they wanted from you. These memories don't fit into their fantasy. They disrupt the illusion they've built around themselves. The illusion that they were always in control, that they never lost, that they were untouchable. When they think about you, they're forced to remember a time when they weren't completely dominant, when someone saw through them, when their manipulation didn't work as well as they wanted it to. And that discomfort lingers. They might try to convince themselves otherwise. They might repeat mantras like "you were nothing," "you meant nothing to me," "I've already moved on," but deep down, they know better. They know you mattered, not because of who you were to them emotionally, but because of what your presence represented. A moment when their power slipped, when their control faltered, when their mask cracked just enough for someone to see behind it. That's why they can't forget you. Not because they loved you or missed you, but because you were a reminder of something they can't afford to face: their own vulnerability. And until they find a way to reconcile that, your memory will remain somewhere in their thoughts, refusing to be erased. So here's the truth. Narcissists may appear cold, indifferent, or even visibly relieved when you walk out of their life. They might not reach out, they might not show any signs of sadness or regret, and in some cases, they might even seem happier once you're gone. But what you see on the surface is rarely the full picture. In fact, it's often a carefully constructed illusion designed to maintain their image and protect their fragile ego. Appearances can be incredibly misleading when it comes to narcissists, because their emotional world operates under a completely different set of rules. Beneath that mask of indifference, they are carrying unresolved emotions, not because they loved you or felt any real connection, but because you represented something deeply significant to them. You were more than just another person in their life. You were a source of control, someone they tried to manipulate and dominate. You were a mirror that reflected parts of themselves. They didn't want to face truths about their insecurities, their flaws, and the instability of their self-image. And perhaps most importantly, you were a symbol of power. They lost someone who walked away on your own terms, someone who broke free from their influence. That's why they can't forget you. Not because of who you are as a person, but because of what your departure represents. It reminds them of a moment when they lost control, when their carefully crafted narrative was disrupted. It reminds them that someone saw through them, or at least came close enough to make them uncomfortable. And for a narcissist, that kind of exposure is one of the most unsettling experiences they can endure. Their inability to move on from you, to truly erase you from their thoughts, has nothing to do with affection or longing in the way most people understand those emotions. It's not love that keeps them thinking about you. It's not even regret in the traditional sense. Instead, it's a reflection of their deep-seated need to maintain dominance over their environment and the people in it. It's about ego, about proving to themselves that they still matter, that they still have power over someone's thoughts or emotion. It's about territory, about the discomfort that comes from losing someone they believed they could control. And it's about unfinished business, the internal conflict they can't resolve because they lack the emotional tools to process closure in a healthy way. But none of this has anything to do with your worth. None of it means you should go back, or that you owe them another chance. None of it changes the fact that you made the right decision when you chose to walk away. What it does mean is that you had more impact on their world than they would ever publicly admit, and that knowledge can be incredibly empowering. It shows that you were never just another pawn in their game. No matter how disposable they tried to make you feel, you mattered enough to leave a mark, even if that mark is one of frustration and loss on their part. And while they may still think about you, whether out of irritation, confusion, or an unconscious desire to regain control, you no longer have to think about them. That's the most important distinction, because the second you stopped giving them your energy, your attention, your time, your emotional space, you took back your power. You stepped out of their cycle of manipulation and control. You reclaimed your independence and began healing on your own terms. That's something no narcissist can ever truly forget. No matter how much they try to convince themselves otherwise, a part of them knows that you left on your own terms, that you chose freedom over control, clarity over confusion, and peace over chaos. And that choice changed everything for you and, perhaps even for them, in ways they may never fully understand. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about refusing to let it define your future. Stay strong, stay wise, and most importantly, stay free.